Welcome back to Unraveled Beer Thoughts. And I have this evening another beer from my table crate. And this is kind of interesting. This is from Pfreim, and it is labeled a Japanese lager. So I think the ironic thing here is, pardon me, getting old. So let me see. I'm kind of curious. I don't think it actually is from Japan. I know that sounds silly because I'm 90% sure Frame is American based, but I just want to double check. Yeah, I think they are styling it after a Japanese lager. Now, the problem here for me is I'm not sure I've ever had a Japanese lager, so I don't have a really good basis of comparison. Smells like beautiful floral bouquet with aromas of shiso plum, fresh bread and violet, and sparkling notes of jasmine rice and fresh green tea. Smells like flowers and drinks like beer. Well, that sounds pretty. Um, so we'll see if it tastes as pretty as it sounds. Um, that does make me want to try a Japanese lager to see if, in fact, Japanese lagers come with those kind of flavors and aromas and such. My guess is, well, you know what? Japan is I think if I think culturally, I would think of Japanese as being a subtle people, um, or I might say a people with subtlety, a people with there are things going on that you can't always see, especially if you're coming from a Western culture, that are kind of under the surface and are unique and subtle and good, and um, it adds a sense of art to life and culture. I might be making more of it than maybe it is, but you've hosted some Japanese international students in the past, and I wouldn't say that that was missing from their personality or repertoire. In fact, one of the unique things I would say there's not a ton of international students that we keep in touch with over the years, but one of them that we have kept in touch with to some degree or another is from Japan, who will write and give us an update on how she's doing and what's going on. We probably should write her a letter soon. Anyway, let's talk about the Japanese lager. I'd say it is. There's something more there than a typical American lager, so I'll give it that. Rice might be a fair assessment. Almost has like a rice like smell to it. We cook a lot of rice in our house, so that that is an aroma that I am familiar with. I would give it that. It's light, and that's tasty. And I previously drank a triple IPA. Partly chose the Japanese lager because the ABV is pretty low, and I kind of wanted something with a lower ABV this evening, especially after a kind of a 16-ounce high ABV beer. This is this is tasty. Not sure I buy the floral notes listed, but to be fair, I had a triple IPA before this, so that was heavy, malty, thick, and this comes through as very light, tasty, refreshing. My immediate thought is I will probably look for this beer in the future. Um, I can't remember if I've ever run into Pfreim before. I know I've heard of them, and I know they've been. It's maybe a brewery that I could have gone to at one point, but it just didn't. I don't know. Either it got cut off of our path in some a road trip we did, or I had to cut short, and maybe it was the last one, and I never got there. Um, but this beer makes me want to try more of what they have made because this is very nice. This is a good, solid lager. It also makes me want to try Japanese lagers and see, do Japanese lagers in general come off this well balanced? And for a light lager, what I am personally looking for, because I'm a craft beer drinker, and maybe there's other beer drinkers, maybe even craft beer drinkers that they're drinking to get drunk or whatever. And but I want flavor. I want taste. I want something that's delicious and good and balanced, and I love drinking it. I want to enjoy it. Um, this is a balanced, tasty lager that has enough flavor in it. I don't feel like I'm just drinking water, or as another friend of mine would say, camel piss. He would call it camel piss. No, this is much better. This is a craft. This is a crafted lager. So I like that one. Um, I would recommend it. Okay, so baseline, because I would look for this again. Baseline four for this lager. Um, I I would hunt for this beer. I probably, as lagers go, I'm gonna go 4.5. One of the things, and I will state this here. I probably have said it in other videos, but I don't. I think the beer rating scale is often, at least on something like Beer Advocate, is askew because I think people taste a beer. They'll come at a beer like this with, oh, my favorite beer is a stout, and then they'll drink this and then they'll rate it low because it's not a stout. And I think that is unfair. That is not a good way to rate beer because this is not trying to be a stout. This is a very different style with coming with very different expectations. So it should be judged accordingly according to its style. And according to its style, this is a 4.5 or maybe even higher. Maybe 4.8. I have a hard time giving a ton higher, but I kind of like to drink more. I'd say 4.5 is a good. Let's start there. I would hunt this. I would look for it again. I would like to compare it with other loggers and then see what I think. I honestly, I like to compare it with other Japanese loggers to see, what's the difference. And in this case, this is probably one of those situations where I really need to kind of do a comparison of lager taste, where I taste several Japanese lagers. Maybe I do some side by side Chinese lagers. Maybe add in some. I don't want to say American lagers because I feel like that's a. Well, I might do American lager. I might look into craft beer, see what craft beer American lagers are out there, and try that. That's not. I've drank a few, but not a ton. But I think that is quite good. Um, and so yeah, as far as my unraveled beer thoughts recommendation, I would recommend the Pfreim Japanese Lager. That is a delicious brew, and I will look for it. And if you have comments, if you've had this lager, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. And if you've had an array of lagers from any other country. I'd love to hear thoughts. What are your tasting notes and thoughts on lagers? And if anybody out there is watching this and has some thoughts on, like, maybe you've been around the world in different areas and then been able to experience lagers in a vast array of countries, I'd love to hear your thoughts on those comparisons across multiple nationalities, because that's not something I've gotten to do. I've been to Mexico and Jamaica. I'm trying to think if I've been to Canada, but I have not tried loggers in all those places that were specific to that region. And in the case of Mexico and Jamaica, I was at a resort, so odds are I wasn't going to have a good craft brew selection in general. It's usually like imported American beers that were brought in for those particular areas. So, um, but yeah, I'd love to hear thoughts of others, and traveling to some of these other nations uh, that I would, that I could have a lager in, and it might be quite different than America's lagers. That would be fantastic. It wouldn't be hard to beat American lager. American lagers. In the craft brew, again, in the craft brew section, there's a few, and they're probably better, but they are better. It's not probably better; they're better. But in our typical, you know, if you were to say, most popular American lager, you're probably going to get a Budweiser or a Bud Light or something like that. And I don't think that's indicative of the craft field. I think that's a completely different section of the American brewing industry. But anyway, I have derailed onto a rabbit trail here. So thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the channel, give it a like, subscribe, and I hope to have some additional content on the channel. Hopefully in the near future, there'll be a podcast that I'm doing with my brother, and it'll have kind of a theological plus beer component, and we'll hopefully put that on a podcast channel too as well. So have a great evening. Until next time, from Unraveled Beer Thoughts.